Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, and today for you guys, we are back outside today in the beautiful outdoors, where every duelist should duel. And today guys, we're going to be talking about a topic that I guess you could say people have been hotly contesting over and debating and having kind of a war of words over, and that is what really makes a deck innovative in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or more specifically, what makes a deck that tops in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Innovative. You know, what makes it different? What makes it unique? What makes it revolutionary? Yes, I'm using the definition and word for innovation right there. So, the first thing I heard about when people were talking about innovation is, I had my own idea of what innovation is, you know, the definition of innovation is. And in this video, we're probably going to be talking a lot about that, what I personally perceive innovation is, and what other people perceive innovation is, and try to come to some consensus of what the definition of innovation is in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, I think maybe older school... Yes, Dragosack, I hear you again. Hear that? That's Dragosack. He's still looking for the Dragon Rulers, but they're banned, so he can't find his home. Cheerio, my good Dragosack. May you keep flying. But today, guys, like I said, we're going to be talking about that innovation word. What makes a deck innovative? I think older school players may have a different definition of what makes a deck innovative than maybe the younger Yu-Gi-Oh crowd, you know, 5Ds plus. Because back in the day, when we were creating decks, personally, and when I was younger, when we were making decks like, you know, Thousand Eyes Restrict, you know, excuse me, I'm still getting over my cold there. Cyber System No TK, Dark Arm Return, Teledad, things like this, decks like this, even freaking Demise OTK. These type of decks were not archetype based. They were an assortment of randomly good cards that you put together to formulate a plan of attack and achieve victory. That's what kind of make those decks innovative, because each deck had its own little niche of what it did. They were a little bit different. They weren't archetype based. They weren't just, you know, okay, this is a Skull Servant deck or a Mermaid deck, and this deck does good at what it does, and because of that, it can beat these other decks in a certain format. No, it was these decks that people came up with on their own for the most part, and Konami didn't, I guess you could say, more or less spoon feed an archetype to you. You got all these random generic cards that you put together in a deck and create a deck. The best example in the recent memory that I can give to you guys is Hat Artifact Trap Tricks, or Fat Fire Fist Artifact Trap Tricks, which was another type of deck people used, Fat and Hat, and also Dino Rabbit. These were two type of competitive decks in recent memory that were very successful in the competitive scene, but they weren't archetype based. They were something that the player base created on their own, and in that sense, I think those are a lot more revolutionary. It's very easy to create a deck out of an archetype, put in some anti-meta, and say this is innovation. I don't think that's the case. I think when I think of innovation from an old school duelist perspective, I think of a random assortment of cards put together to create a deck that can beat the decks that Konami has made for us. That's what I consider innovation. Now, we're going to go over what the definition of innovation is, actually. So, I went to, you know, Britannica, the dictionary, to see what innovation says on, you know, the definition is. So, let's see if the definition from the encyclopedia can tell us what it means. Innovation, a noun, an action or process of innovating, change, alteration, revolutionary, upheaval, transformation, megamorphosis, and breakthrough. A new method, idea, process, etc. Technology, innovation designed to save energy. It's completely revolutionary. So that's what the definition says. I think, personally, from my own perspective, that when I look at innovation, I think in today's game, you may have to look at it a little bit differently than what you did 5 years ago. Because nowadays, pretty much a good majority of players out there and people that play decks play archetype-based decks. Decks that you see majority of the times, with exceptions of Dino Rabbit and Hat Artifact Trap Tricks and some other decks here and there that you see, like Jeff Jones, you know, Psychic Grand Soil deck. You know, you saw him tap with YCS back in the day. with these exceptions, most decks that people play are archetype based, and most decks that have success in a competitive scene are archetype based. You can't get away from that. Yes, there are exceptions, but I think that people taking that step to play these underplayed decks is a good thing, but I don't think it's innovation at the end of the day. When I think of innovation, I think of when the player community, like I said earlier, comes together, formulates a deck that can beat Konami's decks that are currently out at that time. That is what I consider innovation. Over in the OCG, I think maybe because they have a more, Konami of OCG land gives more generic support, and it's more successful as soon as it comes out. Look at Cyber Infinity, look at Kunabali Neverdisk, look at archetypes that have come out of there, these powerful cards that they based archetypes around. They're not just archetype based, they use a random assortment of cards for the most part, and they create a deck. We don't get that luxury over here. Mostly we are more, I guess you could say, maybe lazy at what we do, but then again, maybe it's because the archetype is just so dang strong and there's nothing against it, and the Konami of TCG limits these good traps that we used to use to make anti-meta strategies, so we can't make innovation in the TCG. I feel is a lot harder than innovation in the OCG. That's another thing to talk about, but that's for another day, another topic. So, in conclusion, I personally feel like innovation, even though I love seeing rogue decks top, I don't think that's innovation, just putting an anti-meta into a deck. That's putting a good underplayed deck with anti-meta to succeed. That's putting it in a position to be successful, I personally feel. Even though I love rogue decks, like I say. I feel that innovation, at the end of the day, coming from an old player's perspective, and maybe a newer player may think differently, and maybe somebody else, even an old school player, may think completely differently than what I'm thinking. But when I think of innovation, I think of a random assortment of cards that we put together to create an own innovative deck, something off the wall that's revolutionary in what we do, and can compete against Konami's decks that they have out at the time that's supposed to be the best decks. So that's personally my thoughts on what I think innovation is. Do I think everyone is entitled to their own opinion? Yes, I personally believe that, and I think we should respect that. But my opinion is what I just said to you guys, and that's just my opinion. So even if you disagree with me, please respect my opinion. And tell me down below, what do you think innovation means in today's game in Yu-Gi-Oh? And until next time, guys, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling, and I'll see all of you guys next time. Seto Kaiba, I'm out of you guys. Till next time. Take care, everybody.